A quest for a lost treasure, battling pirates, and a heartfelt story at the center of it all. Treasure Planet is seen as one of Disney's biggest flops. But if you ask a lot of modern audiences, I think they would say that it is actually one of their best underrated classics. Welcome to Easily Entertained. My name is Bryson Olson, here to talk about all the good things about entertainment. Today we are, of course, talking about Treasure Planet, one of, I think, Disney's best movies, despite it being a quote-unquote mistake at the box office, which we will get into a little bit more later. But let's first talk about why this movie has become so beloved by audiences today. So, Jim Hawkins, our main character, a young teenage boy who struggled to stick with it in his early years despite showing good promise. He got into some trouble trespassing on a solar surfer, felt trapped in his little world at his mom's inn, and of course was left behind by his father to just put a little bit on top, add a little cherry on the ice cream sundae of Jim's crazy life. Jim is a flawed yet real protagonist, which is why I think we love to follow his story. Treasure Planet is a movie that fits a bit of an older demographic than Disney was used to, targeting more people in their teen years, which Jim is supposed to represent, as he's kind of like a teen himself. I was looking it up. He's supposed to be around like 15. I don't think they ever actually state it, but that is the demographic they're kind of going for. And it's movies like this and Atlantis that kind of targeted a bit of an older audience, and you can kind of tell just based on how the whole movie is produced. It has not necessarily a fully darker tone, but they aren't afraid to tackle something a bit more serious. And so while critics were very mixed when this movie first came out, a lot of them were kind of like 50-50. They either hated it or they loved it. And I feel like sometimes now that's still kind of the case. The people that resided in the demographic that it was really for, I think, resonated with Jim and the background that he came from. This was around the time that I also had first watched Treasure Planet. I was probably around 15-ish, probably not exactly that age, but it was more when streaming had come about, just because that is when I had finally been able to watch it, just because I had never seen it and we never owned it, so I never borrowed it anywhere. But, I was in middle school, and while my experience didn't follow everything that Jim did, I also felt a little bit trapped in my own world. And as you go through that stage in your life, you are gradually becoming more independent, and you're doing it very rapidly. Like, it's kind of exponential, where suddenly you are very capable of taking care of your own body, of doing things by yourself without a lot of help from parents, as Jim has. But that also causes you to feel a little bit more constrained, because you aren't at that stage where everything can be relied on yourself. You still have to rely on your parents for certain things. And Treasure Planet is very much that coming of age type story that is meant to show as well as help that transition to becoming more independent for its audience by showing you that main character. Helps you understand your own freedom in life. And at the beginning of the film, Jim's own mom also struggles to kind of come to terms with that fact, because Jim is wanting to go venture out into this cool journey, but she's like, he can't really do a lot by himself, like he gets into trouble, that kind of stuff. But it's not that Jim is a bad guy, it's just how that happens. And I think how it is portrayed using a family friend to go out with him kind of represents the subtle freedoms that you're being given around that time, which I think is why we like his character so much. It's because we can latch on ourselves. We know what it's like to finally be able to experience a little bit more freedom in life. When your parents are like, well, you can go do this thing, even if they're like, well, a parent needs to go with you, but you feel like you have more a choice on what you can do, rather than when you're younger, it is kind of based on your parents, where it is you're going to be following them around, which makes sense. You're having to learn how to navigate life for the first time, so it's kind of how you have to do that. But once you become a little bit more independent, you need to be able to venture out, but still be able to fall back on someone that you trust when you need to. So Jim's story is just one that is so real that we as an audience know what it's like. You know, it is something that you can sympathize with and enjoy the outcome and success that Jim experiences even more.
Those gears and gyros clicking and whirring like the devil himself.
All right, well, Jim is the character that we probably connect with more personally. There's another character that we also connect with almost on a paternal sort of level, and that being the character of John Silver.
You got the makings of greatness in you, but you gotta take the helm.
The cyborg counterpart to the original book character, John Silver is the head of a pirate gang who eventually tries to take the map from Jim that he had discovered and get all of the treasure on Treasure Planet. And that's kind of putting it very simply. However, before we get to that point, we get to kind of build a relationship with Silver as he becomes kind of a father figure to Jim. He teaches him how to pilot a skiff for the first time, how to take responsibility and how to be himself, to really give him the independence he needs, as well as someone to be a beacon for that independence. He is very much the father of this movie, and even in the animation it shows it. He has kind of a dad bod, he's a bit bigger of a guy, as well as the cyborg arm, which, like, obviously a cyborg isn't going to scream father, but the kind of softer but strong vibe is what a father figure kind of is, and that's how he acts as well. He's strong, but he's stern and caring as well when he wants to be. If you're like Jim and don't really have a relationship with your biological father, Silver will probably remind you of someone who fits that role within your life, someone who is a father figure to you. Even if you have a biological dad and you're very close with them, Silver very much is like that father figure in your life. And I think for a lot of young men, I think that's really important to have. You should have good sides of both, but it's like if a daughter is growing up without a mother, usually the father, oh goodness, I keep touching my mic. The father will usually try to do things that helps the daughter in the more feminine side of things as well, like how to do your hair or makeup or things like that. Even if, like, that's not their strong suit, that is usually something a mother will show more care towards. And so being able to have someone like that in your life that you can head towards is always a good thing. And I think just because Jim is so young and Silver is such a big father figure, that's why they can latch on to him so much. They can really get behind that father-son story. And I think that's what kind of pushes it to last so long throughout the years. It may remind you of a time that, like, your dad taught you something or got after you, but, you know, he was still showing that he loved you, but he was stern. He was very straightforward about what it was. Regardless, Silver represents that father figure, and that's why we love him. And it's his inner turmoil of wanting to steal Flint's treasure for himself, but also be there for Jim, that makes us root for him, even despite knowing him to be the villain. And I'm going to be completely honest, I haven't seen nor read any Treasure Island related product, which this movie is obviously based of, so I don't know how much that aligns with the source material, but I just know that within this one in particular, it allows us to see how conflicted the two characters are, how similar they can become, and how connected they can be, while still rooting for each of them to have a satisfying end to their story. And I think that's how it manages to persist for 22 years now in the hearts of its audience. I think that's wonderful.
Don't you get it? I screwed up. I mean, for 2 seconds, I thought that maybe I could do something right.
So now, why was Treasure Planet kind of forgotten and regarded basically as a mistake by Disney? I think that's terrible. But from a financial point, That's mainly what it comes down to. Some critical as well, because when it was released, like I said at the very beginning, critics, it was kind of hit or miss for them if they liked it or not. And so even if they liked it, it wasn't pushing it all that much. And, you know, I think that's crazy, because even if you aren't a huge fan of something, I think you can acknowledge that it was at least well done. Because, like, the animation in it is, I think, pretty great. That it at least had going for it. If you don't like the story, whatever, I think you're crazy. But the animation at least blends pretty well for the 3D and 2D elements, which some people may not have noticed on the first go around. They were always tricking you. They were mixing it in. But that's kind of not what really was the mistake. It was more the financial side. That was not great. With a budget of 140 million, it only earned back 109, which means they were 31 million short of even just breaking even. But that was kind of their own fault, really. A few months prior, during the summer of 2002, when this movie was released, because it was released in November, a few months prior, in June, Disney also had released Lilo and Stitch, which was received fantastically. Their marketing was on point, and it managed to hit every beat that it needed to connect with its audience, make back some good money, and be great. However, they didn't really share the same enthusiasm with their marketing for Treasure Planet. The marketing really wasn't pushed all that much. I remember, well, I don't really remember that time because I was only like almost 2 when the movie actually came out. Seeing the copies later with like previews and stuff, there was only ever one trailer for Treasure Planet that I ever saw. And that would have been like for the movies around that time. Like if you had them on DVD or VHS, I didn't see them all that much for Treasure Planet. Like I only remember one trailer, and it was in researching this that I actually found another trailer, because I only remembered seeing the teaser trailer ever, but apparently there was more than one, which is crazy. So that means they didn't really put all that much into the marketing, and the trailer that I only discovered upon researching for this episode really highlighted the adventure aspects of it, which isn't the strong point in this movie. Like, they're good, but it's the story that I think drives Treasure Planet, which I think caused people to not really know about it, to not really get pushed out, because word of mouth is a huge thing. Even if like your marketing is on point, you also need people to be talking about it. And when you're not really sharing that much about it, like, I don't think you should be spoiling the whole thing, but you should at least give enough for people to be like, ooh, that looks interesting, let's go see it. They didn't really do that. They weren't really pushing for it. And we've seen that a lot recently too, with like the live action remakes, which don't really do all that great. Wish, which also wasn't pushed, like it was pushed, but their trailers kind of fell back a little bit, or like Ralph Breaks the Internet, or some of their other flops more recently. And as a result, the financial failure of Treasure Planet, I think, kind of started the downfall of 2D animation within Disney. Pixar was already hitting hard with the 3D animated movies. That was all they were doing during that time, and Disney obviously wanted a piece of that pie. They were making money, so they wanted it too. So after Treasure Planet, they would only really have about 7 major release 2D movies before they fully transitioned into 3D and then just got rid of 2D pretty much entirely, which I think it's a shame, because I don't know why they had to feel like they could do that. Treasure Planet was a good movie. I don't think it was a bad movie. I don't even really think they thought it was a bad movie. They just made some bad bets. Even if it wasn't the best movie, it was fun. It was heartwarming. Had they put a little bit more into getting people to see it, then it wouldn't have been that bad. And I think had they pushed it just a little bit more, it didn't have to be a lot, but at least a little bit more, I think they could have continued to do them. I think the animation world today would be different, because I think this point, maybe Atlantis, because Atlantis was earlier as well, but that was received a little bit better. I think Treasure Planet was kind of the first nail in the coffin, where they were like, it's not going to do all that great. But I think had they pushed for it a little bit more and, you know, stuck to their gun about it, the world would be a little bit different today with the animation world. I was very unsure how I was going to end that sentence. Anyways, let's get on to the rating of Treasure Planet. If you don't know our easily entertained rating scale, from least to worst, it goes garbage. Least to worst? From worst to best, maybe let's try saying that again. It is garbage, once is fine, right mood, quotable, go to, and all day, every day. And for me personally, I'm going to put Treasure Planet at a go to. I think personally I liked Atlantis a little bit more than Treasure Planet. It was just one that resonated more with me for some reason, but I like both, and I think they both get talked about in the same conversation a lot. But for me, Treasure Planet, while good, it's not one that I want to see every day, but it is one that I could definitely be hanging out with friends and be like, let's watch Treasure Planet. This one's fire, and it's a go-to movie for me. So that's why we're putting it at go-to. And we have our question of the week. That's right. Time to pull out your keyboards, open the comments, respond to this week's question of the week. What do you think is the most underrated Disney movie? And I'm going to have a really hot take here, because I don't know a lot of people who've seen this movie, which I think is a shame, because I think it's wonderful. I would say it is 2000? I think so. Disney's Dinosaur, which I freaking loved, which I mean is not surprising considering what I said in so many episodes. I love dinosaurs. You stick dinosaurs in anything, sign me up. I don't care how good it is, but I loved Disney's Dinosaur, and I'll probably do an episode on it one of these days, because it was one of my like sleepover movies where anytime I would go to my childhood best friend's house, we would watch both Disney's Dinosaur and Emperor's New Groove, which is also a fantastic movie. So let us know your favorite underrated Disney movie down in the comments. And that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give us a like and a follow so you can be notified of all the latest episodes. Give us a follow on our social media as well so you can be notified of all the latest entertainment stuff. It's always a good time. And until next time, bye.